Good morning to you all. To God be all the glory. Giving God thanks for waking us up again on this Wednesday, this Worship Wednesday. Let us worship in spirit and in truth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and what He has prepared for us to do. And I hope we all been praying about this situation we going through right now with the birthright citizenship. And as I sat down and I had a conversation with the Lord about this birthright citizenship, these are the things He poured into me to tell you today. Let's go into our Father's prayer before I get this conversation going. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy you are the kingdom, the power, and also the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Okay, now let's get into the meat and potatoes. When yesterday verdict came out for the birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment, of people born here on the soil here of the United States are automatically become citizens, even if their parents are illegal. Okay, that is what it says. Even if the parents are here, not legally here, and they have a child on an American soil, that child automatically becomes a citizen to the United States. And that is wrong. Okay. That was written under the 14th Amendment, and that was written to include the black African slave children in that time as citizens. It wasn't meant for everybody. It was meant for the Africans that were here, the slaves that were here, because they had no other homes to go to, no other foreign countries. And a lot of them, when they brought them over here, if they were here by choice, some of them that came and were captured in captivity and even had to live here under a certain kind of oppression and under things that were restricted to them, and so on and so on. So the birthright is a very sensitive amendment because of the way it was written at the time it was worded and at the time what was going on during those times when it was written maybe 200 and something years ago. So you got to look at the change of people coming to the United States over the period of time and what has changed in the culture of people during that period of time and what have changed in the American culture. Now the thing is that that 14th Amendment was basically written to protect the lives in the historic history of black Americans, okay? That's why I say for the birthright citizenship, for the right voice to speak on that amendment is the voices of the black American, because the black American culture is starting to become the black American in America is starting to become erased. So to save the black American, the children that come from that lineage of the foundational black American is just like certain animals in certain places. They say to save the white whales, they will becoming extinct. Save the certain types of things you have to save for historic reasons. And the African that came here in chains and bondage, and those who were the children of those Africans. Okay, some of them probably came from Africa, some of them came from other places of the world, and some of them even came here, right here. They was already here in the United States of America. The freemen, they were already here. They were already the natives here. Is certain Indian groups that were dark-skinned Indians. They called them Blackfoot. And then you had the Cherokee Indians, and you also had the Seminole Indians, and you had there's all different types of the Aztec Indians, I think it is. It's all different groups of dark-skinned Indians that were already planted here in the soil of America. And a lot of things are becoming extinct. So, to order to save the black foundation of America, because that is the history of America. So I don't know who wrote the document that fought for this amendment to be changed, but they did not probably put in the right things to say, and it was rejected. And of course, from the Trump administration, from the things that have been going on around the Trump administration, maybe they just didn't feel at this time they can change it because of um, because of you know this administration. Okay, for one, Trump wasn't born. He's not a foundation of American history. He came from an immigrant family. He came from an immigrant, both immigrant parents that came here to the United States for a better future for their life from Western Europe. So that wouldn't be a good argument for him because he's an immigrant. He's a child from an immigrant family, and he benefited on that amendment. You understand what I'm saying? Because he was also born. We don't know if his parents were legally here or whatever. We don't know that part of the story. And then there's a whole lot of other white immigrants who came here to the United States of America. We don't know if they were temporary or whether they already here given residency, permanent residency, or whatever, legal status. So we don't know the history of their story. So there's only one story to be told, and that's the African slave story. And those are the children from those ancestors that are supposed to change that amendment to save their identity, because there are too many dark skinned people coming from the United States of America and living in the United States of America who are not supposed to be here, and they live in here fraud and taking away the culture, the natural culture of these states. Because this the true identity, the foundation to America is the black. And then whether they like to hear it or not, it's the truth. Because they didn't have white slaves come to America. They didn't get treated in any kind of inhumane way. They were giving privilege because they were white. Okay, they were able to easily to fit in to being white. Okay, that's why they did not get the treatment. They could easily, um just like Black Americans and Africans, like some Africans and Black Americans could look alike, but they're not the same. That's how it is with them. But at least they all had the right complexion for the protection, okay? And that's probably why they didn't feel comfortable with that 14th Amendment being touched by anybody who was a ancestry of an immigrant. Okay, it has to come from the natives. It has to come from somebody who is a native of American history, and it to order to protect their identity. That's what has to be done, and it has to come from a black person, whether white people want to hear it or not, because there's a whole lot of white people living in the United States of America who are immigrants and who are here not legally by for legal status. And then on top of that, they don't go through the same process of becoming getting visas and into the United States the way black immigrants have to go through that. And even some others of people, minority groups or whatever like that. When I'm talking about the Arabs and the Indians, whatever. But the Indians so far have been treated a little bit more special than Black America, and I find that kind of strange that they get to come over here and keep building up shopping just like the Chinese. And that's another argument, and that's an argument for Black America to take. The 14th Amendment should be changed by Black America. Okay? Nobody else can touch that 14th Amendment but Black America, because the story behind that 14th Amendment is ours. And it's to save our identity of who we are. That's how you save America. When you leave Black America out, of America, America will collapse because it's Black America who is the true story of America and what's behind that flag. That's what all these immigrants coming here, they built, they did this, they did that. If you built something, you will stay there and keep it going. Okay? Strong. You don't move into another person's nation and say you built something. When people could look at your country and see how trashy it is and how destitute it is. Your living conditions are inhumane. It needs to be reconstructed, or it needs whatever problems going on in Haiti. It's got nothing to do with Black America. You're in our territory. This is our spiritual territory. This is where we belong, not you. We allowed you to come here and be with us and visit with us, but now it's time to go home. And the only people that can really truly change that 14th Amendment, it has to come from a native Black American. It can't come from nowhere else to change the 14th Amendment, because that was the foundation of America. The whole fight was behind the slave. Okay? So if anybody, and people don't want to hear it, they might get in their feelings about it, but I'm talking about when America was developed. This is what I'm talking about. We're not talking about this land was already here when people already was coming here and it wasn't even named America yet. It was just a land that people were finding a new home at the time. Settlers that came. We forgot the story of Pocahontas and John Smith, the Pilgrims and the Indians and all those other stories that went on when America was developing. But the thing is that if your family didn't teach you your history, because I know my mother and my parents did, they did the best they can. They couldn't teach me everything. Some things I had to learn it on my own as life took me to the next journey of my life into the next season. But the thing is that because they wasn't here with me long enough, well, my father wasn't, he wasn't here as long for a very long time because he died when I was very, very young. I had my mother at least up until the age of 40. So, and then I had my grandmother too, because my mother passed away before her own mother passed away. So my grandmother, I had her tell me stories and stuff about her growing up and what it was like in her time. And she was born in the 1920s. And I also got to learn some things about my grandmother's mother. And they told us that they were Indians. Okay? She know what her mother was. My grandmother and my aunt mother was mixed. They had Indian in them, and you could see it in their mother because I saw it in the mother. Sometimes the children don't carry the same physical or whatever attributes as their parents, especially when they've been mixed. Sometimes they could come out looking like the mother, sometimes they could come out looking like the father, and sometimes they could come out looking like neither one. That's how sometimes prototypes are. When you learn certain things when you're developing in the womb and how God is fashioning you and how God is making you, shaping you and forming you. You don't know you in the womb. And it's the same way while we in the world, it's a lot of history that wasn't told to you. You just not gonna know. And the thing I say about this birthright citizenship, just because a person born here doesn't give them true citizenship, because you got to think about the parent. You got to think about what's best for the child. You understand what I'm saying? Even though that child is in the womb, you still dealing with another human being. Don't you think it's unfair to have a child in another country and don't tell that child about his true identity of who they really are and the people they came from? Because a lot of these children that were born by parents that was born here and they didn't really have a choice are rebellious against America. They are rebellious. And that's why I say it's important to tell them the true history and at least allow them to live it so they'll know. And when you want to pour, now if you're born in a country and your parents are telling you about another place where you came from, you're going to be curious enough to know about your people. That's what happened. That's the whole story behind Moses. Moses was born, okay? He didn't know his true identity. But he found out as he grew older that he was a Hebrew. When he realized that he came up, he was born in the Pharaoh's daughter's house. And Moses, being born in the Pharaoh daughter's house, he knew something was different about him. Seti really had a very liking for Moses more than his own son. And, because Moses did the things he wanted his son to do. Moses had that type of leadership. Okay. And the thing is that and Moses worked very faithfully under him. His son Ramsey didn't. But Seti had fell in love with Moses. That was Moses' uncle, or supposed to have been his mother, adopted mother's brother. And when Moses realized who he was, he came to understand who he was. He came into his true identity. He can't. That's how he was able to get his people out of bondage. He killed the man. He killed somebody that was a high official guy that was harming one of the Hebrew slaves. And this is what the story is telling you. You can't keep a person from who they are. They need to find the truth of who they are. See, these parents are being very selfish and very disrespectful to the children already because your children should be born where you from. Your children should know their true identity of who they are from you and not from another country and another nation that you wanted to just escape from your own country and come live in America. But you really truly want to be someplace else is where you got most of your upbringing. And see, the whole story with Moses, after Moses went through all of that, Moses had to come and fight and defend and fight against Egyptians. After they fed him, they raised him, they did everything, and that hurt them. We took care of you. You lived in our house. We fed you. We clothed you. We housed you. We did everything. You lived like a prince. And you mean to tell me you're going to betray us to be with the Hebrew, with the slaves and live in the dirt, in the mud and all that other stuff? And Moses was like, these are my people. And that's exactly how these foreigners feel, these children born from these parents that are immigrants feel. They too young to understand now, but as time progresses, they will rebel against America for their true identity. Okay? Just like they're doing now. That's why the 14th Amendment will need change from a native because the black American story is being erased and the black culture here of the Africans are being rewritten and erased, and we need to save America because that story in the history of America is the foundation. That's my argument. And this is what God poured into my heart because I had to go over the story of Moses. He was born in the Pharaoh. He wasn't born in the Pharaoh's house. He was hidden. His mother had to hide him because they would come into all Hebrew firstborn children at that time of sons or whatever needed to be killed because they were overpopulating. And the same thing had happened. And that's why that story is being told in Jesus's time too. Because it was an overpopulation and other people started to be erased. The true identity was being erased. The same evil that happened with, if only Hitler was a Christian, if only he knew Jesus, okay, he would have done it a different way. He didn't have to put those people in no gas chambers and kill people for the colored identity, their identity, or to save the identity of the Eastern Europeans at that time with the blonde and the blue eyes. He didn't have to go that route, but he didn't know Jesus because they was becoming overpopulating and they were losing their identity. If you find the story of Hitler, but Hitler did it in an evil way, in a wicked way, and God punished Hitler for that. And the way Hitler died, that's in our time of knowing history. He was punished because he wasn't supposed to kill nobody. He was supposed to delineate without killing. Like let people, he wasn't supposed to kill, and that's the same thing America is not supposed to do. Yes, send them back. They don't belong here. They need to go back to their country, and we see every reason why they need to go back to their country because their country, they've been in this country too long, and then some of them already made plans to stay here permanently and never really came for TPS. They came for permanent residency. That's why they knew how to get through the loophole, and that's what the loophole is birthright citizenship is their loophole. You can't cancel one without the other. Birthright citizenship needs to be amended, and it needs to stop them from having children on American soil and allowing their children to become citizens of the United States because when they get older, they will not be loyal or faithful to this country. They will always be faithful to where their parents came from because that's exactly what their parents are going to pour into them, how to become an American. I mean, how to stay in their true identity. Those Indians, all of these people that have a real connection to who they are and then to their culture and to their values and their faith and everything else like that. And that will change the identity of America. And we don't want the identity of America to be stripped or erased. America belongs to the American people, to the foundational black Americans because they were here from the foundation and they was the ones who were the true people who built this nation in every battle, every war, okay? Every bloodshed, every tear, the lynchings. But these are the people who belong to America. They are the people of the royalty to this land, the truth to this land. Exactly. We the ones who always fighting for everybody to get things done right. We always try to make America face its true of what it put on paper. But we have to correct it. And that's the way we correct the law. We correct it within the framework to work for everybody. And that's the black American is the civil rights fighter. Okay? We built that in America. Because you wouldn't even have civil rights if it wasn't for the black American, foundational black Americans that put their life out there in the battlefield to die to get that stuff written down. When Dr. Martin Luther King gave up his life of comfort, of being one of the black people that did grow, came up from their bootstraps and was very prosperous in America during a very difficult time through our history. His family were educated, they were well, prominent people, they lived well in the whole nine, okay? But he gave all that up to be there with among his own people, to help his people get up and to get things that belong to them. Don't let people rewrite his story. That man gave up his life. So did, well, of course, what's his name eventually learned the truth and he gave up his too. He turned his life around. That was Malcolm. All those people laid their life down, those civil rights fighters and those people that fought in the battle, we can't forget what they done to keep the American identity of the black American. Because we are always under, if you notice, we are always the ones under attack. Even when the foreigners come here, they attacking us. And they got their own country to go to. Why they come in here to attack you when they got their own country and this is our country? This is the only country we know. This is our home. Why they can't go back home and try to fix their problems over there and fight for their rights there? That's why the 14th Amendment can only be changed by a person who's born naturally here because God will work through that spirit. That's how the spirit of God works. It got to come through spirit and in truth. And the black man and woman, we are the truth. And we want to save our children and save America. If you notice, they always attacking the black child and the black people. They always coming for our identity. America will collapse without us. Trust and believe me. It will become a third world because we were the ones who stayed faithful to this nation. We were the ones, we did not trade this nation out. Obama is not us, okay? So don't even talk about Obama. Michelle is us, but not Obama. He came from a foreign background with mixed culture, mixed language, biracial, so he can't really be in there with us. He's talking about this all in a melting pot. No, we ain't, no. America is 100% cotton. That's the cotton from the African slave, okay? Those ones who really picked that cotton in the field. And if you notice, the cotton that's made in America is so much better than the cotton made in China. It got a better quality to it than in China. The cotton in China is cheap and flimsy. The cotton in America is strong and it stays in its true identity. It doesn't lose it. Look at if you buy something from USA, and I know from my back in the days, I noticed how the cotton t-shirts, everything start looking flimsy. But you get that cotton from America, you got quality cotton. Those those slaves picked that cotton with their hand. They knew how to make material and everything with it. They even invented. They said Eli Whitney, Eli invented that cotton gin. Who was out there freaking picking that cotton? It was the black man. So he invented it, but Eli took the patent. He took the name. Everything that was invented in America was invented by the African slave. People could get mad all they want to. The truth is the truth. The truth only gonna hurt those who didn't know the truth. And you know what? White people would come in here as immigrants and they were getting by because of the privilege of their white skin. But the only immigrants that they looking at now is the black immigrant. Okay? You have to make that amendment go across the board. Okay, not only just discriminate against black immigrants, but you got to get white immigrants too. And President Trump is came from a white family of immigrants. Okay, so he wouldn't be the right person to speak on the amendment. He could speak on it as the president, but to get it right and to get it fixed, it's going to have to come from some lawmakers that are black, foundational black Americans. They are the only ones who can really truly fix that amendment. It has to come from one of us. And they have a very valid argument because everybody trying to steal the black American identity, but they don't have they not true foundational black Americans, and they was not, even if their parents had them here, they still carry the same ways and customs and things that they bring with them from their own original land. Okay, they still going to carry those traits. They still going to carry those things, and that's going to wipe out the history of the black American or the African slave. That will wipe it out. They going to change it to something else, and they trying to do it now. That's why it's important for the foundational black American who is sitting in that law, that place in the Congress and all that other stuff, need to start opening their damn mouth. And they need to start doing something, whether they voted for Trump or not. Okay? Whether they on the Democrat side or the Republican side. Somebody got to do something, and they got the power because they sitting right there in those seats to do it. That's the only one. And President Trump, it ain't about changing his identity because his white identity is safe. He had the privilege. He came in through privilege. Okay? But you got to save the identity of the black American identity, our lineage here in the soil of America. So with that being said, I gotta go. I gotta get myself together. I got an appointment I don't want to miss. So you all be good, and I'll be back with you all later. So think about what I'm saying. Get your conversation going in the comment section, and let me hear what you got to say. I can't really look at the screen right now, what's going on in the chat, but I would rather you leave a comment in the comment section. How you feel this is, and that's what the Lord poured into me. I had to go over the story of Joseph. I had to go over this story with all of those people in the Bible because God gonna tell you the story. And here's the story. Look what happened to Moses. He was raised by the pharaohs. He grew up in the Egyptian pharaoh's home, and he was adopted and everything else. And his real mother was there and everything, but his identity was hidden. He didn't find his true identity until he saw a Hebrew that was being beaten and he by one of the what you call it, and that's when he came and killed the man. And that's the same way I feel about these immigrant children being born on American soil. They wasn't born here. They not raised here. They got their own country, their own identity, their own language, their own everything. That's why they keep saying, oh, we built this country. No, you didn't. See how the story is being rewritten? They didn't build this country. We are that's why we call foundational black Americans. We are the foundation of America. But we sit behind the flag because our people were in bondage and slavery and restricted and oppressed. You see, but everything that is holding America up right now and being strong right now is the fight coming from the foundational black Americans. It's our fight because God hear our voices in the wilderness and how they trying to erase us and how we've been under attack. We being under attack even by foreigners. So that should tell you something right there. So with